few things that we like to do to open up the meetings. First of all, I'm just curious, how many people here are new, have never been to a Nevada County Online meeting? Fantastic. Let me tell you guys a little bit of what it's about. You've never been to an NCO meeting? Oh, holy cow.
I know.
I work with Hillary with Sierra Commons. Nevada County Online is a cooperative business group to share and discuss and get better at internet marketing. So we bring in speakers once a month. Hello, welcome. Bring in speakers once a month to talk about a variety of internet marketing topics. So ranging from podcasting to search engine optimization, website design, Facebook marketing, how to run a contest, how to keep yourself organized, which Shawn knows something about. She'll talk about that today. And we're open to your participation as well. We're the largest business meetup in Nevada County. We have over 400 members. This is a little bit of a light turnout today. We normally have, between 30 and 50 per meeting. That said, if you want to be part of the leadership committee, talk to Machen.
Or Corion.
You can do that. Let's talk about the holiday a little bit.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jeannie Durst, and Susie usually does this, but she's gone today. So the holiday meetup party, so in December, instead of a regular party, well, it's like a party when we come here, meeting, we're going to have a party. Hi, Brenda. And it will not be held here. It will be held at, is there a name for that? Is it 151 Mill Street?
Yes.
In Grass Valley?
Union 151.
Oh,
But it's a
151.
different, the Mill Street address is something different than 151.
I've got 151.
Union Street. It's 151 Union.
Oh, that's
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
It's 151 Mill Street.
Mill Street.
Okay.
It's Union.
It's underneath the Christian Science meeting room, and it's across the street from the Smith Winery.
And if you were there last year, it's the same place as last year's event. Okay, it will be on December.
You're the one with the printout.
Yes, December 9th. I don't have my glasses on, sorry about that. December 9th, we need all of the RSVPs in at, it's 11 o'clock.
11 a.m.
11 to 1. We need the RSVPs no later than Friday, December 5th, because we have to order food. And the food is, let's see, what did she put here? Pulled pork sliders, turkey wraps, pesto pasta, veggie soup, green salads, cookies, and other desserts. And the cost is just $10. Because we're picking up a big portion of the cost with donations throughout the year. And then also, if you have a raffle prize, because we will be giving away some raffle prizes, little holiday things. So either can be your service, or you can put a bottle of wine, a nice little gift bag with your service, maybe 30 minutes of something. So you need to let Susie know, and just email her at susie.daggett@gmail.com, or let one of us know. It's cash or check only, and if you want to pay for it today, that'd be great. Otherwise, at the door. But we want
With an RSVP.
to RSVP online the meetup. There will be a meetup announcement going out. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It was fun last year.
Yeah, it was fun.
We always have fun, and we're looking for a few different musicians as options this year. One of the things Jeannie mentioned is that the cost of the rental of the room and the catering was a lot more than $10, but that's for us right now where the primary source of donations are going, because at this point there's not a lot of overhead for giving Machen his bribes to show up here.
Just your hair, Jim.
You don't need to use that, do you? For hair polish. Next, let's talk about what we've done recently in internet marketing. We have a portion of the meeting for success stories and also questions. So anything you want to share right now, it's a good time to get up and say what you're working on.
Yeah. Okay, I have an announcement since we're sharing. Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Brenda Horton, and I am the proud founder of Nevada County Meetup Online, and it just really brings me a lot of great joy to see everyone here and to see the continued leadership here. So thank you for participating. I am giving a workshop, and I rarely give workshops here in Nevada County. Most of my work is done online and out of the area. I'm super busy right now building a software company, a productivity app. But I am giving a workshop this Friday at the Nevada County Online Association of Realtors. And how many of you have, can you pass this around please? How many of you have a website? Okay, how many of you are just rocking your online sales funnel from the driving traffic, converting those sales into customers and into dollars? Great, so you need to come to this workshop this Friday, okay? That's what we're going to be talking about. So I'm passing the flyers around, and it's lunch is provided, and so all the information is on there, so I hope to see you there. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Brenda. What's the time and place again?
It's Friday at the Nevada County Association of Realtors from 11 o'clock to, 11:30 to 1 o'clock. And it's a lunch and learn series, and I'm just going to be talking about how to build your online sales funnel. So, yeah, so that's what you need to do if you want to get more money.
And the Association of Realtors is located on Whispering Pines, if you're not familiar. And it'll be held downstairs in Easterly Hall, which is a great environment. And we just got all new tables, so your learning experience should be way better.
Actually, it's on Crown
Crown
Point.
Point.
Crown.
Sorry, it is
very
Crown Point,
near
but go
Whispering
up
Pines.
Whispering Pines. A lot of people don't even have any idea where it is, so thank you.
All right,
Crown
so I want to
Point.
make sure we give Shawn her due time to be able to present today. So,
Yes.
are there any more success stories?
She has one.
Oh, just a quick announcement. Sierra Commons is teaming up with the City of Nevada City and Starta out of Sacramento to bring you the Epic Beer and Geeks event.
Yes.
It's a Northern California event in conjunction with 5 other locations. We're going to do some video conferencing. It's going to be really fun. It'll be at Old Republic from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Thursday.
Great. And that's a lot of fun. I've done a Beer and Geeks in Sacramento, and it was really good. Really fun way to network. Let's see. One of the things I grabbed are these. So anyone who has come to these meetings, please feel free to take some of these cards. Who doesn't have any in their wallet or in their bag right now? Raise your. So these simply, I know. These simply are cards that you can give to your friends when they talk to you about business or internet marketing. You say, hey, by the way, there's a great group in town that just has the basic information. Normally we're the 4th Tuesday of every month at 11 a.m. here. We're at the 3rd Tuesday because for both Shawn's schedule and because of Thanksgiving, it was a little bit better. Let's see, I think we did party, we're going to give away Take This Ski Party as the sponsorship.
Actually, what we're going to do, Shawn was kind enough to donate a couple of her books, so we're going to do a raffle towards the end. So if you don't have your business card in here, make sure we have it in here before the end of the meeting, and we'll give Shawn actually whatever she wants to talk about the book and what's in it. We'll give her that opportunity.
I'm sorry, could you do just a quick rewind? What is on Thursday between 6 and 8 at Old Republic?
It is a Beer and Geeks meetup of local business professionals, particularly some techie people there as well. But it's a way to share some pretty good beer and business ideas, networking, contacts, things like that.
Thank you.
And Sierra Commons, if you haven't heard of Sierra Commons, is a local co-working facility, provides business education.
And it's in collaboration with Global Entrepreneurship Week, which is happening all this week, so that's why they're promoting it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
good for us to be here. We've got some entrepreneurs.
So we'll do the drawing at the end of the meeting, so there's plenty of time to get your cards in and get learn about the book. Does anybody else have a win or something they'd like to share with the rest of the group that revolves around internet marketing? Any other announcements? Okay. Without further ado, Corian, I'm going to let you introduce Shawn, and we'll get started.
Okay, hi guys. So I'm really happy to announce the presentation today by Shawn Tuttle, a friend of mine and business associate. You can tell by her keen and beautiful makeup today that she is highly organized. So I noticed earlier that her scarf matches her eyes, which is something I would never think to do. She is a organizer and she does presentations as well. And naturalprofessional.com is really your main work website where she teaches businesses how to be more efficient, how to manage your time and your resources and be more effective so you can have more time doing what you like. That said, podcasting has been a key part of how Shawn has built up her ability to do training and marketing through that. Because if you've got something that's compelling and engaging to say, more and more people are going to podcasts to learn about that. But I'm not going to talk about that, you are. So Shawn Tuttle today to teach you about podcasting and marketing.
Hello, everybody. Who here knows what a podcast is? Excellent. So almost everyone. As Corianne mentioned, I primarily do online trainings in the productivity and mindfulness realm. And I know a bunch of you here today. And I started more in the professional organizing realm, and then I went location independent, which is all online, all digital, all the time, except that I get to be here with you today. So who here has a podcast? Anyone? Okay, so who is almost, okay. And who is considering starting a podcast? Excellent. Okay, super. So I'll go through the first part a little more quickly because so is there anyone who does not know what a podcast is? Okay, so. All right, excellent. So my podcast is called the Authentic Success Podcast, and it's in the area of business and in the crossroads of basically personal growth and potential and fulfillment. That's the stuff that really makes me happy, the stuff that really gets to my heart, and that's the stuff that I want to bring to people. So that's what I talk about on my podcast, and I interview people for that. So a podcast is like a radio show, sort of, okay? So you get programming, you get to decide on your subject, but it's not, oh no, the radio went away. Well, we had some technical difficulties and this isn't what it looked like. This is not like a radio, okay? So there's no specific time for your podcast. You don't have to go through any FDA stuff. You don't have to get approval. You don't have to get sponsored by a radio station, okay? So it's what you want to do in the format that you want to do it. Some of them are weekly, some of them are monthly, some of them are daily. Some people publish their podcast daily. And we get to do that because we have, should be www. We have major distribution, right? We have this beautiful thing called the internet where I can zap my notes onto my Nexus and we can move the presentation from one computer to the other and we can do all of these things because we have the internet. So the podcast gets distributed to anybody who wants to hear it anywhere in the world. And so presumably English speakers, that is your limitation, English speakers. And since people don't have to show up at a designated time, they get to listen whenever they want, right? So when is convenient for you to listen to the shows that you want to listen to? Most people tend to listen to podcasts, and this is kind of helpful. So kind of setting the stage here. So most people are listening to podcasts when they're exercising or when they're driving, when they're traveling in their car. So you'll see a lot of podcasts that are, say, 20 minutes because that's kind of like a short little commuter time. And you've heard of the sitting in your driveway story. You see people sitting in their driveway and they're like finishing up those last couple of minutes of their podcast. So knowing about when people listen to them is kind of helpful for designing your podcast. How long should yours be? Who are your people that are listening to it, and what kind of scenarios might they be in when they listen to it, right? Because that's going to help you in determining how long yours should be. They're going to find out about it from you, from your website, and from podcast directories, etc. Sad. Okay, well, it's similar to, who does video? Who does video casts and posts on YouTube? A bunch of people. Okay, so a podcast is similar to a video cast, right? Because you can, similar things, you can set your own agenda, you do your own format, but the videos tend towards shorter format. The podcast is really awesome because they lend towards longer format, which gives you more time to get into deeper subjects. If you're interviewing someone, you have more time to go into depth and really get to the nitty-gritty of what they're about and where their interests are and how those relate to your audience. So it's a longer format type of show. But it's similar to the video also in the sense that, YouTube is one of the largest search engines on the web. Right? So when you think about what your business is and what your subject is, where are people putting in those keywords? They're putting it into the search engine, into Google, but they're also putting those subjects into YouTube. And so you have this, again, another opportunity to be presenting information in a way that is long form, in depth, with all of those keywords that you know that your audience or your potential audience is searching on, and bringing them to your website. Or through podcast directories, which we will get to. So your platform, or the other platform, I don't remember which. You have a lot of different opportunities. You've got your website, maybe you're doing your video casts, maybe you're doing stuff on in person, and you've got your audio. So you're reaching people in a lot of different areas so that when you're going out to leverage your audience to reach out and either get advertisers or whatever you want to be doing, you've got another source for people to be gathering in your space. One of the things that I particularly like about the podcast is that it's a beautiful way to develop your body of work, right? So on your blog, how many people are blogging on a somewhat regular basis? And do you have a strategy for what you blog about? So some people have some strategy there. So the thing about the blog, right, is you put up a post, and the most recent one is the one that shows up first. And then if you're blogging regularly, then they sort of get lost. So with the podcast, when you pull up someone's show in, say, iTunes, which is the most popular podcatcher directory, you'll see a list of people's subjects, basically a list of their shows. And so at a glance, someone can, looking at that list, get a really good sense for what kind of information you're bringing forth and who you're associating yourself with just by looking down that list of episodes, assuming that you are strategic with your titles. Okay? So it's a great way to, basically put together your body of work. So, a few more thoughts on thinking about your podcast from your listeners' perspective. So like I said, when are they listening? What kinds of subjects are they wanting to hear about? Are they wanting to hear interviews? Are they wanting to hear your thoughts about something? And that all depends on your own branding and your relationship with your listener. The podcast is very interesting in that you have this, you're in somebody's ear. You're in their head. And when you talk with people who've been podcasting for a long time, and they say that people come up to them and they feel like they know them, right? It's a very intimate format if you want it to be. You can talk right to that person and be sharing information with them, and they feel like they know you. And so in your space, whichever space you're in, who are they going to go to when they have another question? They're going to go to the person that they know. Even if you're on the other side of the world, if you've been talking to them and they know your voice, and they know your tone, and they know your sense of humor, and they jive with all that, you're the one that they're going to be going to. So these are standard... Yeah, okay, I can spell normally. So these are typical pod catchers, okay? So this, they're distributors. This is where people go to find new podcasts, to develop their own personal radio programming, right? Instead of turning on the radio and you listen to whatever show happens to be on, you've collected your favorite podcasts. Mine tend to be business-oriented, storytelling-oriented, and that's what I listen to. If I've got brain cells, I want to listen to business stuff. If I'm tired and I need entertainment, then I listen to my storytelling one. But there are, there's podcasts on everything, and people tend to be passionate. So even if you don't know anything about knitting, sometimes a knitting podcast can be interesting. And so this is how you develop, the listener develops their own radio show programming. And so I use Podcruncher on my iPhone. I subscribe to a bunch of different podcasts, and then I get to listen as desired.
Any particular podcast for a specific subject matter? Or just general?
For these are all general. Yeah, these are all general. So iTunes, oh yeah, question.
Just a real quick question. Will all of those podcast stations, will they use the same library, or each have their own unique library of podcasts?
That's a great question, both. Stitcher and iTunes are both directories that you submit your podcast to. Podcruncher, I believe, draws from iTunes. AntennaPod and Downcast, I'm not sure. I just want some other variety ones, and these are multi-platform. At this point, when they say multi-platform, you're usually talking about Android and iPhone, right? So those were both relevant on those. I'm pretty sure they both draw from iTunes. Stitcher is one of the few that you submit separately. And then there's another one that I ran across recently that I'm submitting to. And I don't remember the name off the top of my head. Yeah, Brenda.
So just so I'm clear, so iTunes is the Godzilla, and then these are the little guys that are submitting to, that iTunes is capturing from them?
No, sort of the other way around. So if iTunes is the main go-to, and if you have a podcast, you are going to submit it to iTunes. And iTunes has this massive directory of podcasts, all of them under the sun.
So these are subdirectories?
These are, think of these more like what's the word I'm looking for?
Resellers, kind of like.
Yeah, almost reseller, that like the portal. Like as the listener, you go to Downcast and you say, I wonder what podcast would be interesting. And so that directory is tied to iTunes directory.
It's essentially your search engine.
It's like, yeah, these are mini search engines. Yeah.
Search engines specific to podcasts.
Yeah.
All right. that
Yeah.
makes sense.
It would kind of be like iTunes is the library system as a whole, and these are the library branches, and each library branch may have the same book, but they also may have unique books.
Yeah, they may have a few of their own.
Stitcher's for Android, so that's the one that I use for Android phone opposed to iTunes.
Oh, got it. Okay. Yeah, and Stitcher is multi-platform. So, it's on all of them. Yeah.
So I'm thinking about using this more for an existing client base or potential client base, or somebody's at my website, and I'm California license specific, so I don't market outside of California. So how would I use it then? Because it would be a little bit smaller reach than, say, maybe what you would do.
If you go the full pod, so you have a couple options there, right? So if you go the full podcast route and you get registered with iTunes, then you're giving anybody in California the opportunity to find it. You don't, but there's no closed doors. So in your description, you might say, for California, for licensed in California. And you'd be very clear that this is a California-centric subject. Alternatively, if you didn't want to, if you only wanted it for your people, then you could just set up a similar type of thing, and maybe you don't send it to iTunes. Maybe you just get, host your audio files and kind of replicate how people are structuring their podcast set up on their website. And you could do it that way also. But just for the reach, I mean, if you're Nevada County wide, that's one thing. But if you're California wide, then I would go for it.
I'm more Nevada County wide, so that's.
Yeah, so maybe you just do the audio. It doesn't take that much more to actually put the stuff up.
Okay.
But yeah.
I just did an interview with a new Nevada County podcast. It's at ncpeeps.biz by Rick Tracewell. And that is an example where he's just looking at Nevada County focus. He's been able to bring in sponsors like the union to sponsor it and other places in town. So take a look at that. NC Peeps, P-E-E.
Oh, that's a Facebook group.
He's gotten the domain,
Oh, okay.
ncpeeps.biz, opposed to Nevada County Peeps, which is the Facebook group.
Okay.
So he saw that the local focus on Nevada County Peeps was really working, and that's well used. So this is an approach to use podcasting to create a marketing platform. So if you want to be interviewed, you can go and make a request, and if you want to listen to my interview, you can go there.
Cool. Great.
Thanks.
So that segues well into, wow, formatting's really funny. These are the iTunes podcast categories. If you're going to submit your podcast, you have to pick one of these. And there are subcategories within some of these. Sometimes it's a bit of a reach. Like I'm in marketing and management, and that isn't necessarily where I would think to put myself, but it made the most sense. There is such a wide variety. In games and hobbies, you have everything from gaming to woodworking and knitting podcasts. In TV and film, you've got fan shows and things about specific shows. You've got things about industry. You've got all different kinds of stuff. But this is what it's going to get narrowed down to. Okay, so I was going to take a moment for questions, because clarity is good. We just had a bunch of questions, so any more? Yeah, Meechan.
Are you going to get into how to upload onto iTunes?
I'll talk a little bit about logistics. It's a multi-step process to get going. Yeah. And since you bring that up, I have run what I'm calling Jonesing to Podcast class here locally. I've run it twice, and I now have an e-course version, and it talks about basically all of the different bases that you need to touch in with in order to get your podcast up and going. Okay. So, examples. I'm going to come over here and see if I can't get you some. I want to talk about examples in the context both of what kind of podcasts are out there, but also let's talk about it a little bit in terms of how they're using it in the context of marketing and their business. Okay? And hopefully this will work out. Okay, so the accidental creative. Who's familiar with Todd Henry? Anyone? So he's an author. He talks about creativity. He's a consultant who goes into businesses and helps teams and management facilitate creativity in their business. Right? He's not someone that you or I would necessarily call. Like, that's not the kind of stuff that we need. I love his podcast. He does these short little, from 9 to 12 minute segments, and they're all around creativity and process, and what he's doing is he's sharing what he knows, what he's learned on the job, and this is the stuff that he writes about. So when he goes to his publisher, in addition to having followers on his blog, he's saying, this is how many people, and unfortunately I don't have subscriber numbers to share with these. Well, follow Twitter, yeah. So he's got, 6,000 follow and 10,000 on his own Twitter, but I don't know how many subscribers he has to his podcast. He now has 3 books, and so when I listen to his podcast, he's mentioning his books. He's not selling his books. He's saying, this is a subject that I talk about in this book. Or he'll talk about his subject and say, I'm about to go into editing on this book, right? Just little glimpses, right, that just kind of pull me in so I know where he is in the process of writing his book, getting it published. And then he might say, hey, I've got, I was one of his early buyers. Like I bought one of his books before it was published because I heard about it on his podcast. He said, here's how it's going to be made available. And then he got some community going around that, right? And so I don't go to his blog. I learned all of this, and I got all of this from him from his podcast. So if you have a book or some kind of written material that you are going to be possibly sharing with your audience, this is a great format.
Does he also have a blog?
That's a good question.
Well, he says he's got articles and podcasts.
Yeah. Yeah. I would.
He's got a list anyway.
Let's see. Well, there's the books and then his articles. I would think so. No, and then he does
I'm
upcoming.
just curious because the question is, can you just use podcasts as another topic that you put on your blog?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll show you how one way to do that. Similar thing, Freakonomics. Everyone's heard of the Freakonomics guys, right? So there are economics that get into just like kind of fun and interesting things, vampires and economics, and they've got a book and they challenge assumptions and, do kind of fun stuff. So it's a perfect subject for a podcast. They're sharing bits about economics, they're selling their books, they're selling their movies, they're really expanding their platform. So this is a more well-known author, and so there's a lot of authors doing this. Then we had the Creative Pen. Okay, so the Creative Pen. So this is this woman named Joanna Penn, P-E-N-N. She didn't want to do her corporate work anymore, and she started writing. What she really loved was writing. She writes thriller novels, okay? She writes thriller fiction, One Day in Budapest, Desecration, dun dun dun. I don't read thriller books, okay? This is another podcast that I love. She interviews other authors. She interviews people in the book business, and since that is in my periphery, so I'm interested in that. She talks about creativity, the business of book selling, the business of book writing. She talks about industry updates. So this is another great way to let people know how much you know and how on the edge of your industry that you are, right? So she'll talk about changes with Amazon's logarithms having to do with KDP Select. That's going deep into some subject if you are writing books. You want to know that stuff. So when I'm starting to look at marketing my book, where's one of the places I'm going to go? I'm going to go here. So now that she has her podcast, and she's got quite an amazing lineup of people that she's interviewed at this point, what does she do then? She starts putting together products. She starts putting together different things of subjects that she saw was popular, and then she takes her information, puts her twist on it, and she creates an e-course or she creates an e-book. And now she's got another sales opportunity on her website that was triggered by the podcast. Okay, so that's I want to put that one in your brain. As far as you might not be selling something right now on your website, that if you had a following and you had some specific subject that you were diving into, you might start discovering some other opportunities for your audience. So on Being with Krista Tippett, she talks about wisdom and moral imagination, and this is another one that I really enjoy listening to. She does a great job. She sounds like NPR. So this is a good crossover one because she says not found. Where'd it go? Oh, the page that I had found was, bummer. I don't know where it went. Anyway, this is a crossover. She is syndicated on radio stations across the country. So a lot of people who do have radio shows are turning them into podcasts for the same reason that I'm not in Cincinnati at what was that one? Yeah, like at 10 a.m. And I'm not going to go online to WKRP's website to find their 10 a.m. show with Krista Tippett. I'm going to her, I'm just going to subscribe to her podcast, right? So it's another way for her to get information out. I believe they might also, or one of these at least, you can also create an app. So instead of someone going through Stitcher or going through Podcruncher or going through iTunes, you might have an app created. So this might be the way that you go. So you have an app created that is only for your podcast. So that would be one way to go. But part of my reason of bringing this up is it's very popular. She does a great job at interviewing. She is an amazing interviewer. So if you're, as you get into your casting adventure, she's a really good one to listen to because she goes really deep with people. She listens really well and asks great questions and does a great job of drawing out her interview subject.
What subject matters?
Wisdom and basically what does it mean to be human? So it's called On Being. So what does it mean to be human? And she definitely has a philosophical, and her first question to her interview subjects is usually something like, what was your either spiritual or religious affiliation growing up? Like, what is your background? Not like, where are you from, but like, where are you from is what she's really getting at. Okay, Mixergy. This is Andrew Warner. And I bring him up, let's cut his forehead off. So a lot of people, in the entrepreneurial space had corporate gigs, decided they didn't want to do that anymore, and so they started figuring something else out. His gig is called Mixergy because he saw that, how did he put it? It was great, and it was perfect for here because it has to do with so he thought the key to his success was his local meetups. Da-da! So I figured I'd copy his idea and use meetings to help business people. I called my events Mixergy, a combination of mixer and energy. And so he started doing this kind of thing, and he didn't have enough reach, and so it fell flat. And so he realized what he really enjoyed doing, and he's good at, he's another good interviewer, is interviewing people. So he started interviewing people. And again, he didn't know where his podcast was going to take him. He's interviewed a ton of people at this point. So here's another, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but his model has become one of the freemium premium model, right? Which is typical for software. Here's your free version of the software. And then if you pay extra, you get all of these extra things. His podcast is free. You can sign up for it. And if you want additional trainings, more in-depth interviews, and community, you go and you sign up, right? So, yeah, Brenda.
His podcast is free to a certain extent. If you want like all the 1,000 interviews, you have to pay the premium membership.
Yeah, and the free part is completely legit. Like, you don't listen to it and think like, oh, I got gypped. You know, like some free stuff, and you're like, they gave out this much just to reel you in. Like, he does good. Would you agree that he's a good interview?
I listen to him all the time. He's amazing.
Yeah.
And anyone who's interested in business and technology or software startups, when he had the software startup, he tends to focus people in the tech space, but also online marketing and startup companies. And he's an amazing interviewer.
Mm-hmm. He is. Amy Porterfield she used to work with Tony Robbins, decided she wanted to do her own gig, and is now leading her own online marketing company. So you can sort of get a sense for, it says recent posts, but these are all episodes, right? So look at some of these titles. How to attract leads on Instagram. 7 tips to create a 3-part video series. These sound just like blog posts, right? So she knows who her audience is, and she knows what they want, and she knows what they need. So I like this one. Should you use clickbait to increase engagement on Facebook? And in the description, she talks about how Facebook has changed their logarithm, and here's what you can do to stay up with Facebook and to keep your stuff, staying present and getting out to the people who need to see it, right? So when you're wanting more you listen to something like that, she's going deep, she's obviously done her homework, she's obviously up on what's going on. So the next time I want to be playing around with my Facebook strategy, where am I going? So, and it just so happens that she has courses, she's got like how long? I don't know, it's a 6-week or 2-month course on Facebook marketing. And so she has different courses that she runs, online courses that she runs, and her episodes tie really neatly into those, right? So obviously she's put some really great thought into looking at what am I selling, who am I selling to, and how am I going to be drawing people in? Talk about sales funnel, here is a free way for people to understand and know who you are and get them into your, world. They get to know you, they hear you, and oh, hey, I've got a course coming up. I have a book coming out.
I actually bought one of her courses a couple of years ago, and she's really good. She does an amazing job of capturing you with just some really cool headlines and then taking you through the entire sales course. She has a really good support team.
Cool. Yeah. All right. So any questions on that stuff? No. Okay. So marketing, what is it really about? It's about meeting your potential person on the dance floor and figuring out if you are a good fit. And the podcast is a great way to explore that. And my notes are gone. Super cool. Okay. So in this context of, where do you want to be in your space in the marketing? Who do you want to align with? Who do you want to be seen with, in the sense of who do you want to be associated with? Because if you go and interview that person is on the title of your podcast, it's in the directory, it's in the, whoa. it ends up on your blog. Your name is now linked with this person. And if you do a really great job of interviewing, then maybe they'll turn around and interview you. So you want to be rubbing elbows with the right people, the people who are known in your space. So who is it for, right? It's for people who have stuff to share. Content, content, content. Like if you have content, then you are a perfect candidate to have a podcast. It's another search engine. So is it only for the service-based business? No. So let's do a quick, say, brainstorm. Who has a physical product-based product, not just service? Anyone? Okay. And Machen. So what are some ways that you could talk about that in a way that would help the greater world understand better about what you've got going on? So product being?
Software.
Software.
I do a lot of training, teaching, coaching, mentoring. So, and just helping people understand how our software can help empower them to work more efficiently, more productively, and save more money, more time, just get more things done.
Mm-hmm. Right. So some of the people that you might interview might have directly to do with that type of thing. It could be complementary. It could be, she could even talk about hardware, right? If she's talking about an app, she might start talking about the difference between different kinds of hardware, because that's eventually going to come back to her product, right? So you can, let's use an even more physical one, or someone locationally oriented. Say someone who does catering in an area. So then you can start talking about food. You can talk about food and wine pairings. You can talk about health and nutrition. You can talk about, you can bring people on to talk about, gut health. You can talk about a lot of different things. You can start talking about storing food and food storage, right? So you've got all of these random, they're not random at all. You've got all these different subjects that are tying back to food. And when you see which ones of those are popular, you might create a couple of e-courses or a couple of e-books. And so all of a sudden, you're not just looking at your local area. You're able to go, again, anywhere English speaking. So that kind of answers the question, is it only for the online business either? You basically, if it helps if you're selling something on your website, but it doesn't have to. Because we've got the other kind of cash, which I already started talking about. The entrepreneur on fire. Oh my gosh, this one's crazy. I'm going to show you what his numbers. This is one that I do have the numbers for. He publishes his monthly income reports. He started his podcast in September of 2012. He publishes his podcast, one episode every day. He grossed $253,000 last month. He netted $183,000, right? So how is he doing that? Let's look at some of the ways he's doing that. Just kind of fill that in again. So he's got the product and service income. So in these last 2 years, he's created products and services. He's done so well, he's like, I'm going to help you do well too. And now he's doing even more well, right? So he's now selling stuff that he wasn't selling before. He's got affiliate income. And that's a lot of how he started out, was doing affiliate income. And then it gets into his business expenses. He also, and sponsorship income is here. So that's how a lot of people also make money, is through sponsorship. And there are actually websites that connect podcasts with sponsors. You typically need to have at least like 10,000 listeners for that to be appealing for them. So I just wanted to show here how your podcast can kind of blend in with the rest of your website. So when I started my podcast, I added this link here, right? So I've got podcast link. So then there's the page of what is the podcast, who it's for, and what I talk about. For each episode, I create a page of show notes. The show notes are, so all you know WordPress, each show note has the category of show notes, and so they get aggregated here, right? So here are the different shows, and each one has its own post. So I'm still getting some SEO love because I'm talking, I get to throw in my keywords. I get to throw in the words like entrepreneurs and business support and masterminds, right? So all of those have been included in here. I give people the opportunity to listen here on the website. Here's the main directory, so I have links to those. There's links to the show notes, so I'm connecting with my the person I spoke with, and then I have music and photo credits. So that is one way that you start tying it all together. So you can be your own, these guys, the Fizzle Show, these guys decided to be their own sponsor. They didn't want to give that attention to somebody else to go off their thing. So they talk about their own mastermind program. They just kind of throw it in there, same kind of thing. It's along with the subject, and by the way, we have this program, and so they have decided to be their own sponsor. Mixergy, we've got the freemium premium model, and then the products. Coming up with products and selling those based on the feedback that you get from your audience. So logistics, Machen. We're talking logistics now. Okay. All right. Oh, well, you have to get an audience. So here's my not so happy story. Yeah.
Do you know the numbers that he has to have his listeners to get that 250 grand in October?
No, he's got so let me tell you his story. So in June or anyways, spring or early summer of 2012, there was the New Media Expo in New York City. And I was at that. I went to that. This guy, Andrew Warner, went to that as well. And he had been in the corporate thing, decided he didn't want to be there. He hired a coach, Jamie Tardy, who has a popular podcast. He bought a 3-month coaching package with her for $3,000, and she helped him come up with a strategy. And that strategy was to go to this conference, and he had an introduction to some very well-known people in the space. These are the people that you want to be aligned with if you're in the online entrepreneurial world. He said, I'm starting a podcast. Can I interview you? He got 3 people to say yes. Now, so the one other element to this is he listens to podcasts voraciously, and it frustrated him that they only came out like once a week or once a month. So his shtick was going to be, I'm going to publish an episode every single day. So he gets these 3 biggies, and they say, yeah, sure, we'd love to help. He does the interview. So what do you do with those 3 names? You start leveraging them. So that's what he does. He leverages those names, and he starts going to other big name people who weren't at the conference, and he says, I interviewed these 3 guys. Can I interview you? This is this guy, right? That was 2 years ago. The podcast started in September of 2012. So he leveraged that, and he publishes every day. The more often you publish, the more the directories like it, the more likely you're going to get up to like the new, or no, I guess not new, but the noteworthy and the popular podcasts. To get listed in the popular podcast, you need to have some nice artwork, and you need to have a lot of people downloading your show. So here's what I did. In spring of 2012, I went to the Wisdom 2.0 conference, and I went up to 3 people, and I didn't know his story at the time. It just happened to be the same time. I said, hey, can I interview you? And I got 3 interviews, and it went great, and I published on a once-a-month schedule. And then I hit a roadblock, and something happened, and I didn't publish anything for almost 2 years. So my podcast just sat there. And then earlier this spring, I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? I love podcasting, so I got it going again. and I publish on a once-a-month basis. Am I anywhere remotely near what this guy has going on? No. You need to publish regularly. You need to you need to interview people that people know, because then their people will connect. Yeah. Audience. Interview people smartly, publish regularly. That's funny. So your minimum elements, yeah, awesome, we'll do it. Minimum elements to get going. You need your idea, your theme, your subject. In addition to that, you need a persona, right? So you're not just, hi, this is another episode of the Authentic Success Podcast. Is that how I'm going to show up? No, I drop into who I want to be. Hey, this is Shawn Tuttle at thenaturalprofessional.com. On this episode of the Authentic Success Podcast, I'm talking with blah, 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 right? So you get to kind of like take on whatever persona that you have in your mind that embodies the subject, your subject, and embodies that relationship that you want to be having with your listener, even though they're not right there. You need hardware. This is all you need. You need one of these. Doesn't have to look like this. And you need a microphone. Here are 2 microphones. This is a USB microphone. It's the coolest looking thing ever.
I have that one.
Isn't it awesome? The only problem with it, is that it's heavy and I cannot travel with it, because I travel with a backpack, not with my car. It just plugs into your computer. So whenever I'm doing any kind of recording directly into my editing program, I use my happy little Yeti. Then this is my new toy. This is called a Roland. It's a Roland R-05. It's an audio digital recorder. Does great sound. This is the windscreen. So if you're outside, you don't have that, from the smallest breeze, you get that. It records. I plug it in. I transfer the file. I pull it into my editing program. This is a cool little microphone. Has great sound.
How much does that cost?
Separate from the mic, the big mic?
Yeah. This is with me always. This is going to be in my basement because I'm going to Europe in December.
Okay.
And
How much does that run?
This new runs about $200. I found it for $90 on Craigslist.
And what's it called?
Roland.
R-O-L-A-N-D.
Roland R-05.
There are a lot of different ones, so I would do the
Yes.
reviews on them. That was ranked like number 5. So look at some of the things.
So there's a wide variety. Depends on what you need. It's light. I love it. It's great. Software. Yes, there's going to be a learning curve. You need an editing program. Audacity is the free editing program that's both Mac and PC. You need the MP3 encoder that may or may not come with your editing program. And you need an ID3 editor, which technically there's one in Audacity, and I've found that it's not completely reliable, so I use iTunes. I use iTunes to put my metadata into the episode. So everyone know what the metadata, the ID3 tags are for your audio? So say you have a podcast or some kind of audio file that you've downloaded from someone's site, and the title is like some weird long title, and then it doesn't have any other information in it, and so it doesn't get pulled into an album or anything like that. Your ID3 tags say, basically formally, what is the title, what is the album, who is the artist, what is the year, and what is the genre, and you can put up artwork, right? So when someone then pulls it up on their phone, they see your logo, they see it's part of the Authentic Success Podcast. If you look up artist, you're going to see Shawn Tuttle, and so it pulls that in a way that all of the different readers can get it. Yeah.
I know Windows has an IDE3 editor incorporated in the operating system. Is this Apple?
Not that I'm aware of.
On a Windows-based system, you can right-click on a program, or a file.
Yeah.
Go to the metadata information and the details of that file.
I don't know how to do that through Finder. Their solution for that may have been doing that through iTunes, because iTunes comes native on it. Yeah. So those are the basics of what you need. Hosting. You can host your files on your own server. And if it takes off, your host may not be happy. So generally, it's good to go to a media type of place. Libsyn charges $5 for 50 megabytes of upload each month, and that's a great way to host your media files. And then you connect that with iTunes. That's how it gets to iTunes, is you connect your feed, which is what Libsyn produces. Your feed is basically the address for your show, and that's what you send to iTunes, and that's what iTunes starts picking up. So there are different ways to do it. Depends on how tech savvy you are and how big you think your podcast is going to be.
What was the name of the place that you just mentioned?
Libsyn, Libsyn. So just to kind of get a little bit of concept here, what are the time estimates per episode? To do a good job, you want to brainstorm your episode, so you say 5 to 20 minutes. You're going to research, do a good job, a good hour. Record yourself talking if it's just you, or your interview, 30 to 90 minutes. Editing the actual content, producing, adding your intro and your outro if you're pulling in music. Writing up the show notes so you can put it on your blog and put the description in with your episode, and then do some marketing. So it is a bit of a time investment, okay? So it's not just something that you just kind of like put in with, like between wash the dishes and do the laundry. General costs, hardware, from $0 to $5,000, right? Yeah, I mean, if you get a full setup, you can spend bank. I spent $100, and this actually cost about $120. Software, if you're going to be recording through Skype, you can get Call Recorder, and that will record your conversations. That's only $30. The rest of it's pretty much free. You can get it free. Hosting, like I said, Libsyn, $5 a month. Music, graphics, you don't have to. It can just go onto your existing website. So it's not money is not a high barrier to entry. So I have my e-course that basically covers all of those basics, and I've got some screencasts for workflow, which sounds like, yeah, whatever. Once you start dealing with a whole bunch of files in different formats and different versions, you'll say, ah. So then I have a screencast for getting up to speed with just the basics of Audacity. And so it's a 20-page PDF screencast, links to the different resources, and assignments to get you clear on what you're looking to produce. And I think, oh yeah, that's what's in it. So this is what's in the table of contents of the PDF, the Envision, setting up your show, recording basics, content, and the tech basics. And it's $49. And okay, that was time. So what questions do we have on podcasting?
So tell us about some of the mistakes.
Not publishing often enough.
No content.
Yeah, not having content. Not having just passion. Like, I would not recommend starting a podcast because you think it's something to do for your marketing. You got to do it because you love what you're talking about, because that comes through your voice. And people don't see you, they hear you. And if you're just like, okay, yeah, well, I've got this other, thing and that I'm going to tell you about because it's time for my weekly podcast. So it's got to be something that you're interested in, and you need to be prepared. You need to have your subject researched, right? So a lot of these people that are in your space that you might want to interview, if they're that well known, they've done a lot of interviews. Do you want to be another one of those interviews where you're just skimming the surface? Or do you want to have listened to some of those interviews where they just skim the surface that triggers ideas based on your own content and your own point of view, so you can go deep with them, knowing, hey, I saw that you wrote this article 5 years ago, recap, do you still feel that way? Because blah, blah, blah. You can really have some fun with it. Yeah.
One point I wanted to make is also consider, if you are an expert and you don't want all the time for the podcasting, flipping that and finding people who are looking to interview people like you. And I've done that before, like going through online radio places and looking for shows that had good topics and saying, hey, I'm somebody that you should want to talk to, then that can be something that can open some doors for you as well. Say, oh, I'm a popular online radio subject or interview subject.
Yeah, right, yeah, exactly, yeah.
I
Yes.
wanted to mention another downfall I see with this one a lot is folks think about widening the funnel as big as they can make it, forgetting that great content, if business is your purpose, if making money is your purpose, great content is not just a magnet, it's also a screen. If you make your funnel so wide and you start getting hundreds of phone calls from people who you can't sell anything to, but you want to be polite, you got to answer those phone calls, that podcast could devastate all the time in your business. And I've seen small businesses do it again and again and again out of being nice, helpful, wonderful people. And the podcast does them in or the blog, it's the same in both. So if you can take that little extra time in your content to think that it's not just a magnet, but it's also a screen and keeps out those that are never going to buy from you. Or I don't even keep them out, they can listen, but doesn't make them want to pick up the phone and call you because you'll drown under that.
Right, yeah.
Have you seen some formats that you especially like? Sort of the questions asked or like how-tos or top 10 tips or things like that seem to be more popular than other podcasts?
Well, that's two different questions. If I've seen ones I liked and then, what's popular. What's popular is the intro, here's a bit about what's been going on, since the last episode. Here's my subject, here's why I'm bringing them to you, subject, and then some kind of reflection, closing, that's a very standard popular subject. I personally kind of like the NPR type of format where, there's maybe shorter, so one subject, shorter pieces that are woven together, obviously a lot more production going on there. I like that. I think that to be successful, you want to have consistency. So maybe you have a subject and then you have a short how-to. Or maybe, like some people do vary, like they'll do an interview format and then the next week they'll do like a short just monologue on a specific subject. So it basically whatever you know about good marketing practices, about being specific, narrowing it down, making it very clear of how this is going to benefit the listener, you just take all of your basic marketing principles and apply them. Yeah, and I had another question here.
It wasn't a question, it was just an FYI. As a voice teacher, one of my professions, I've been listening to your voice, and you have a lot of beautiful melody in your voice. And so I would suggest anyone who wants to do this, listen to your voice, be aware of monotone or repetitive musical patterns in your voice that would become monotonous. So listen.
Yes,
Yeah.
Great point. Yes, absolutely. Great.
Great. One more question? Is there any more? Or 0 more questions? Oh, we have one.
Excellent.
2 is a trick. How do people listen to podcasts in their car? You said they do.
Yeah, so Bluetooth, right? So you can hook your phone up to your Bluetooth radio. I've done the bad thing in the past of literally I use my phone, so one phone. And then how do you get the phone to the speakers? Bluetooth, headset. I had auxiliary, the audio auxiliary plug goes into the stereo. So if you have an old, manual radio, it's not going to happen.
Actually, for a really long time, I would burn CDs, and because you can take your podcast
whole bunch
and
of
burn
them,
CDs.
Oh.
It's not eco-friendly, ecologically friendly, but it totally works.
It works.
So
If your little portable iPod speaker sitting on the seat next to you works if you've got an old radio.
Yeah.
In my 82 Mercedes, this is my sound
Yeah.
system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
it's fancy.
Yeah, another question?
Yeah, why do commercially sponsored talk radio programs or radio programs make their programs subsequently available for anyone to listen to as podcasts with the commercials edited out? I'm glad that I don't have to listen to the commercials to listen to the program the next day, but I don't know why they let me do that.
Right. Yeah,
My specialty is on the sponsorship end of things, And if the sponsor paid for X number of listeners that typically listen to the radio show, you don't want that sponsor getting all the freebies that came later. You actually want to sell them something else. And by saying to your end user, I'm giving you these free of commercials, you're giving a better value equation to your end user who may then become a customer. And you're not giving too much away to your sponsor who didn't pay for all those extra listeners.
Well, alternatively, they might, that's a perfect opportunity for an upsell, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Depending who your distribution is and whether you have the option to sell there. But when I worked at an online radio station, we would go back to those same people and approach their sponsors and say, do you want to get this extra audience? Then you pay for it here.
Right.
But we wouldn't have let people bring their sponsors over because they were keeping all the money for the ads they were running on our radio station.
Right. You got to be careful about the ads, though, because in radio shows, they're pretty much accepted just because that's the way it's been on podcasts. If I hear too much ad, that really turns me off.
Well, and when I say radio program, I'm talking about on a Pandora or Live 365.
I see.
Premium model. If it's free, I listen to ads.
Yeah, exactly.
Ads
Yeah.
same,
Right.
which is how most online radio is.
Okay. Thanks so much for inviting me, Corian.
Yeah. Thank you, Shawn. That was really informative. That was great.
Cool.
And I apologize, we didn't have the adapter for her computer to talk to the projector, so we had to move it.
I know.
I apologize for that. Let's do the raffle.
Everybody have their card in?
Yes.
Okay. Do we want to pull for two?
Yeah, two separate ones.
So
Two
what is the
separate-
raffle?
So this is, of course, how to kick ass without kicking your own ass in the special spiral binding, which it allows you to lay open on your desk because it's one way per page. So you can focus on one per day.
Who's that written by?
Oh, this is by me. Do I get to pick?
You get to pick.
Oh, sweet. Okay, so we have one going for Doug. All right, this one will be an actual business card. Machen. Does this seem rigged or what?
It's the first time I've won it.
That was really funny. Okay.
So let's bring this to a close. I've got a couple last little parting things. First of all, we have some great speakers in 2014 lined up. Barry Friesman's going to be 2015.
It's already happening.
You're right. You're right.